Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and following the 3 H's of the channel. And in this video, it's all about the state of Michigan. Now, the only thing I really know about Michigan for sure is the sports teams, but apparently there's a lot of strange things that happen there too, and in this video, I have a few of them. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. This happened back in 2022, and I am still not really sure what to make of it, but I'll be short and get to the point. I live an hour west of Grand Rapids, and I was driving home on this rural road at around 1 a.m. The sky was clear. There was thick and sporadic patches of fog on the ground, and I was approaching an intersection. I was the only car on the road that I'd seen for about 30 minutes, and then I see a figure walk on all fours from the side of the road. It was about 5 feet at the shoulder relative to the road sign in front of it. The legs and belly and most of the head were solid, but the rest of it was transparent. It was wavy, and I could only make out the rough shape. And it was transparent in the way that it was like a gas from a grill or something like that, a nightkin from Fallout New Vegas. But the rough outline was something like a bear with no fur and a greyhound. It was really weird, and to add to how strange this was, as soon as the thing got to the middle of the road, it simply faded away. I was supposed to go straight through that part, but I ended up turning and taking a different route that took an extra few minutes. I've heard of weird things happening in Michigan, but I never thought that I would see one. A few years ago, I was visiting friends up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, specifically in Marquette. I was hiking up a small mountain called Mount Hogback with 2 friends. We spent some time at the top, taking in the absolutely beautiful scenery. At some point, in talking and screwing around up there, I fell into the snow, and I got snow all over my phone, and it completely ruined it. It would never turn on again. Aside from that, we continue with our little adventure and start heading back down the mountain. But, of course, it's in the middle of the winter, so the trail is covered in snow. I ended up at some point losing the trail and one of my friends on the way down, and I got pretty lost. Me and the remaining friend with me are about halfway down the mountain now when we spot something, a makeshift hut in the middle of the forest. Since we were up there, we figured that we should check it out, and we didn't see anyone. There's footprints, but they aren't too deep, so we assumed that whoever was here has been gone for a little while. It looks like a typical makeshift shelter. It even has a bench made of logs and rope. We look around the hut and spot a ton of makeshift upside-down crosses. I'd guess about 20 of them. Some of them were on the ground, but most of them were hanging from trees by the same rope that was used on the bench. I turned back towards the back wall of the hut to see photos taped to the wall, and for some reason, the photos were covered in like 10 strips of masking tape each. The photos were all black and white, despite this happening in 2019. The photos are all of women, all different people. Some women are sitting, some are smiling. But then we see one that seems to be laying face down. The photo was black and white, so we can't tell if the puddle is mud or blood or something else. The puddle is kind of dark, but too deep to be all blood, so we're not sure. We decide to just get the hell out of there. We continue heading down the mountain and reach the bottom, about 2 miles away from where the trail would have taken us, but eventually get to the car. Our other friend is already waiting down there. About 6 months later, when the summer came, we all go back up the mountain to search for the hut. We find the spot that we're 90% sure is the right place, but there's no hut to be seen. The Upper Peninsula can be a very strange place. So all this occurred in the southwest Michigan area. Myself and a group of friends would play paintball about every weekend during my high school years. We had permission to use this massive plot of land that was split by railroad tracks. So we would set up and play pretty much all day. When the sun started going down, the woods took on an entirely different vibe. Just so much tension, and you could just feel the pressure. There was really no other way to describe it. So as a group, we decided that we would just end our games before it got dark. And now, fast forward a few years. My group of friends, a different group, mind you, are all getting into occult stuff, and they're experimenting with spirits. Well, one of them brings up the land that I would play paintball on, claiming that it had some seriously bad juju. So being the guy who knew the area well, I offered to take them out there. We'd get out to the woods around the evening. The vibe is the same as it always was. Very tense, very suffocating. We make our way to the old building that sits by the tracks. Everyone gets settled in, and a few of them go off into the woods to try and see something or find something spooky. I stay back and just chill at the building. I was making small talk and whatnot with the others while we wait for our friends to return. I think it was a good 20-something minutes pass, and we hear yelling, and then the distinct sound of a handgun firing. We all jump up, not really sure what to do, as our friends come rushing out of the woods. There was no time for talking. We all just book it to the cars and leave ASAP. We get a few miles away and stop to hear their story. Apparently, one friend had his dark vision goggles and saw something that was more or less humanoid, like a creature peering at them through the trees. When he alerted the other guy, the creature bolted toward them, and that's why he opened fire and ran. So after that account, I wasn't really sure. I had been coming out there so much and never had that happen, so I decided to head back there the next weekend. So I head back there to the spot. I get there at around 11 p.m. It's dark. It's spooky. I don't leave my car. I just sit by the entrance of the property. I roll down my window to try to talk to whatever it is that my friends experienced or saw. I just spoke out into the woods and called it out, basically. I remember more or less taunting it, and once I had my fill, I drove off. By this time, I lived a good hour away, and I was heading home. As I pulled up to turn to the road, I get maybe 20 feet down when I get slammed with pain in my lower stomach. The feeling like someone's hand is pulling your guts out is the best way to describe it. My radio goes off. My dash lights go dim. Every window in my car goes frosty. I drove for a good half an hour, and then everything stopped. All the lighting came back on. The radio returned. The pain in my gut stopped. As you can imagine, I was relieved, to say the least. By the time I make it home, I feel much better. My grandma's a night owl, so she's up in the kitchen, making tea or something. I go sit at the table, and I'm chatting with her. A few minutes go by, and I feel the tension from the woods again. But in my house, I'm playing it cool in front of Grandma, and we continue to chat. The next part still has me screwed up to this day. So my grandma's in the kitchen. Behind her is a glass door that leads to the garage. So as she's going about her kitchen stuff, she moves out of the way of this door, and in the door is standing a tall, dark red or maybe brown-skinned man, smiling. The smile was ear to ear, and it was just a grin of pure malice. I just about shit my pants. He vanished as quickly as he appeared, however, and was gone by the time that she turned back. I excused myself and headed to bed. I spent that night praying, doing any kind of protection ritual I could think of. Really just whatever I could do because I was so scared. I still don't know what the hell this thing was, but I don't F around with that land anymore. I haven't had any other experiences with said smiling man either. I grew up in the suburbs, and I moved up north, not the Upper Peninsula, for work. I work in forestry, and I've seen some interesting things, both mine and coworkers. The first one I want to tell you about is I had a weird experience with what could be a thunderbird, but really, me and my coworkers aren't sure what it was. I was sent out to Cadillac to do some surveying of a forest that was infested with something that was killing the trees. There was nothing too odd there. I've done this many times. I took a new guy with me to get him some experience. Now, Cadillac isn't the most remote area, but it's still pretty rural, and there's a shit ton of forest area. But anyways, let's get to it. So we pull up to the area. There's no path. We have to park on the side of the road and walk it. This area is about a half a mile into the woods. This isn't a problem. Obviously, I've walked longer, given my job. So we start walking through the brush. At some points, we were basically cutting our way through. It's summertime, so it's not really easy to get through there. We get about halfway there, and we smell death. We think it's probably a dead deer. And sure enough, it is a dead deer. But it wasn't on the ground. This dead deer was in a tree, 20 feet up. There was no rope attached to it, or hanging it. Nothing. It was literally just impaled on a tree. I take a picture on my work phone and send it to the boss. He tells us that it was probably some prick hunting out of season and to leave it. But that doesn't explain how it could have been impaled on a tree branch 20 feet up, but okay. We continue on to the site. As we get closer, we can obviously see that something is clearly wrong with the trees. They're dying, and fast. As we get closer, it gets worse. I've never seen anything like it. We finally reach our point, and the trees are decimated. There's at least a 50-foot circle of just dead trees. Think of like if a flying saucer or a UFO landed type of circle. The smell of death was horrid. As we expected from the smell, there were about 4 other dead deer, other rotting animals as well, but they were so far gone that it was hard to make out what they were. And there was weird feathers everywhere, along the rim of the circle that the trees were dying in. I called my boss. He told us to come back to the truck and write a report. I asked him if he wanted us to continue the survey. He says no, tells us to just get back to the truck, report what we've seen, and just get out of there. At this point, the new guy and I are just kind of stunned. We've never seen anything like this before. But we do follow our orders. We return to the truck and write the report. It's not too interesting, but our boss never did tell us what the hell was going on, and to this day, I've never seen anything remotely close to that. I have some other weird things that happened as well. Like this one. I was 1 year into working in forestry. I was still new, so I was trying to get as much experience as possible. I go with my higher up to a site. We were doing some surveying again. We were in an area that's almost totally unpopulated for about a little over 10 miles, so we don't expect anyone to be out here. Anyways, we take a really narrow road as close as we can get to our site. The road ends, and we decide to walk the rest of it. The walk is only about 2 miles. It's fall at this point, so the trees are all yellow and orange. It was absolutely beautiful. Nothing but a sea of color, so I didn't mind the long walk. After we're about 100 feet away from our site, we see a figure. My coworker and I just stop and are kind of WTFing. My coworker doesn't look good. His color has drained from his skin. He looks pale and clammy, like he's just seen a ghost. I'm not really scared. It just looks like a man. I look at our map, I look up, and I look at the map again. This guy is literally on the exact pinpoint location that we have marked on our map, to the T. He was sitting down with his feet straight out. My coworker isn't moving. I ask if we should confront him. I get no response. At this point, I'm pretty weirded out, but I'm not really scared. Again, it just looks like a dude. I walk closer. I get within maybe a good couple yards of him. The dude is wearing dress pants, a shirt, and a tie. Think like Mormon-style clothes, with the white shirt, black dress pants, and tie and stuff. I say, "Hey, are you alright?" There's no response. "Are you lost?" There's no response. And there's no emotion on his face at all. I was about to head back to my coworker when the dude stands up really quick. The emotions seem to flood back to him. His eyes kind of come back to life. We can see it on his face. He's looking around like he doesn't know where he is. He makes eye contact, and then the dude turns around and starts booking it, like hauling ass. I run after him a bit, but he's gone. We can't find him at all. My coworker snaps out of it. Both me and him don't know what the hell just happened. We do the survey as quickly as possible and just get the hell out of there. Here's another one. It's not super crazy, but it's still weird. We were driving to a site, as usual. It was in the evening, the dead of winter. The snow was falling really heavily. My coworker and I are just talking, shooting the shit. We have a long drive ahead of us. It's a pretty forested area, trees on both sides of the road as far as the eye can see. It's a straight shot. There's no real turns in the road. Then, we see a set of headlights, probably just a few miles away. It's a straight road, so you can see cars really far away. Plus, there's no people in this area for a few miles either. The headlights are coming closer really fast. The car up ahead has to be doing 60 miles per hour. It's the dead of winter, and the road is icy, so this is insanely dangerous. We call the sheriff since we don't want this idiot killing anyone, if anyone is even out here to begin with. The sheriff says, all right, he'll come out. I get a call back 2 minutes later. The speeding idiot is DNR. I think, what the hell? Why is he out here? We get close enough where we can see that he is slowing down and waving at us. We pull up to the truck. We jokingly say, damn man, who's chasing you? The DNR guy, with a look of absolute horror on his face, says, turn around now. We say, whoa, we were called out here this way. Did something happen? The DNR guy says again, don't effing go any further. Turn around right now. I'm not playing around with you. The DNR dude keeps looking in his rearview mirror as if he's being followed. I say, listen man, we've got to go out there. What's going on? The DNR dude again says, listen, this isn't a game. Turn around now. I already talked to the sheriff. Get the F out of here now. At this point, I'm getting pretty scared, and so's my coworker. We don't know what's going on. The DNR guy speeds off. I call my boss. There's no answer. I call the sheriff again. The sheriff says to do exactly what the DNR guy said and to get away from the area. We turn around and we start going about 50 miles per hour. The DNR truck is now nowhere to be seen. We never figured out what the hell happened, but it was quite weird. My boss and the sheriff of that area also never spoke of what happened and refused to let anyone know anything when we asked. Of course, I've also had some weird encounters with UFOs. Most of the time, it was in the evening or at night when the sky was clear and we were coming back from a site. I'll share a cool one, not really scary, but neat. It was around 8 p.m. We were driving back from a job. It was November. There was light snow on the ground, but it hadn't started falling heavy until mid-December that year. The sky was clear. The stars were out. It was super pretty. There were two other guys, including me, my boss, and a trainee. My boss was driving. If I recall, we were all talking about the stuff that we were going to do on Christmas break, how things are going, just kind of general conversation. It felt nice to do this, since my boss is usually a guarded person, and he and I never talk about non-work related things. My boss reaches for his cigarettes, tells me to hold the wheel and keep her straight. The boss returns his hands to the wheel, and there's a zap. He was shocked. Think of a static shock, but 5 times stronger. We all think, okay, that was really weird. And then I feel a strange pressure, kind of like something is off. The trainee in the back says he suddenly doesn't feel well. We look behind us. There's a weird object tailing us and coming up on us fast. We think it's probably a couple 100 feet above the road. My boss sees it. We're all WTFing together. This thing is literally zooming across the sky. 1 second later, it passes over the car, and we realize we can't hear anything. We're WTFing again. We watch the object follow the road at speeds that no airplane can travel until it stops. It sits there, idle for a few seconds. My boss slows down the car to watch it. The thing is probably half a mile away, and then it shoots straight up into the night sky, gone in seconds. We got back, and we weren't really scared, just more interested in what the hell it was. My boss said that he had seen something like that before, but this was the first time that he'd ever gotten eyes on the thing. We had a visual for at least 30 seconds. It was pretty cool, actually. And the last one I have isn't really scary. It's just one more weird one I can think of. We were surveying an area on the outskirts of Torch Lake. We were surveying and doing our normal stuff. And then I felt like I was being watched. My field buddy also felt it. We finish our stuff and head back to the truck. We get there and start it up. Check the mirrors. There's a dude standing at the edge of the woods with a hunting rifle and a handgun on his hip. He waves us off as we are leaving. We report this to the police. The next day, we had to go back out there. The police refused to go with us, so some DNR guys tagged along. They were thinking that he may have been hunting out of season. We get back to the original spot. About an hour in, we feel as if we're being watched again. The DNR guys are just chatting a few yards away. We hear some crunching to our right, a pretty good distance away. The DNR guys go check it out, and then there's gunshots. We think, oh, what the hell? One DNR guy runs back to the truck, tells us to come with. Apparently, this dude was crazy. He had been scoping us out every time that we went to that area to survey, and was so sure that it was his property, even when it wasn't. It was state land. Here's the kicker. The guy never even bought any property. The dude just lived out there in a tent, and therefore, in his mind, claimed the property. When the DNR tried to confront them, he pulled a gun, so the DNR officer shot him in the hip area. Anyways, the police arrived and took him away. We didn't really know the full story until about a year later, when someone at work told me about it.
So, what did you think of those encounters? To recap, we had what might have been cult-like activity up in the mountains. A very strange-looking entity sighted on the highway. We had what may have been a demonic presence in the smiling man, and high strangeness in the forests of Michigan. If you had one in specific that you liked the most, let me know which one it was. And if you have one of your own, I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you'd like to. Also down there is a PayPal and a Patreon if you'd like to donate to the channel, and super thanks here on YouTube. And with that, I think I will see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump. If you liked the video, then feel free to like and share and subscribe and all that great stuff. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and have a good week.